basically, segmenting, targeting, and positioning. Some people, we'll talk about it in a minute. Some people will say it's kind of becoming old hat. You know, marketing and kind of the new generation of marketing is changing pretty rapidly. Essentially, though, the foundations and the fundamentals haven't changed much, and I don't think they will actually. We still do most of the same things. So, here's the question: is segmentation dividing the market up like a pie? That's kind of traditional. That's the way we traditionally think. What do you think? Is that what segmentation is? Do you fight others for sales, market share, that sort of thing? Yes, no.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but that's not right. That's not segmentation. But you don't want to do that. Why? Why would you not want to fight with others to grab market share? Huh? Yeah, and it's really hard to do, isn't it? I mean, because once you start fighting with another company, once you're competing with another company, essentially you spend an awful lot of money and effort trying to take market share away. So a good example, I mean, it's a silly example. The lady who works here, I had some actually different slides, but she changed some of the pictures and stuff. I had, you know, ANZ Bank versus NAB, which I think she thought that was, you know, too much. So I said, well, okay. So she put a very bland thing called a bank, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's okay. But basically, you know, Australia often had duopolies, don't they? Coles and Woolworths, Holden and Ford, Virgin and Qantas, and it's largely the size of the market and that sort of thing. But essentially, they spend an awful lot of money in the U.S., where I'm from, of course. Coke and Pepsi fought and spent billions, literally, on advertising, basically just to gain a few percentage points of market share. So it's not always the best way to go. Or is segmentation kind of expanding the market by creating new segments, like blowing up a balloon? I mean, you probably know this whole story, but it's a silly story about IBM. When IBM first created their 360, the first big mainframe computer that was actually fairly sophisticated, they estimated that there would be about 5 or 6 customers ever. They thought that defense would take it, U.S. Weather Service would take it. There was a couple of others, maybe, but they didn't really think that it would actually create new markets. Of course, what happened was, as people saw that computing could do an awful lot of things, it created tons of market segments. So now, most of you are probably fooling around with your phone, and if you are, you're probably playing with something that has more power than mainframes did even 10 years ago. So it's a whole different thing, and as computing's become both more effective, more powerful, and cheaper, we found a lot more uses for it. I mean, I bought a car recently, and essentially it's not a car, it's a server. I mean, it's got this Subaru eyesight stuff. So, it actually yells at me when I don't drive well, and it tells you a lot of stuff. So it's actually a pretty smart car. I think it's about a step and a half away from being an autonomous car, right? I mean, and that's where probably we'll be going pretty soon. A good example, besides the Subaru with this kind of bizarre little eyesight thing, is Kickstarter. How is Kickstarter a competitor for a bank? Banks didn't consider Kickstarter a competitor either. But what has Kickstarter done? What can you get from Kickstarter? Yeah, you can get money, you can reduce risk, you can actually market, you can sell your products, pre-sell your products. It's even better, right? You sell your product before you've even made it. But Kickstarter is a good competitor for banks. What else is a competitor for banks, even in Australia right now?
There's no interest in Kickstarter funds.
Well, yeah, it depends, but there can be costs with Kickstarter funds. But in Australia, you also have, in the U.S., New Zealand, same sort of thing. You have these kind of essentially peer-to-peer lending clubs. You know what I'm talking about? The one with a little rabbit on it, where you can make an investment. I've got a friend who's probably the most moral and ethical guy I've ever met. He's a cotton farmer back in Georgia. And he actually thinks it's okay to do this. I said, what sort of rate of return are you getting? He said, on average, about 35%. I said, you think that's right on loans? Because what does a bank charge? A little, yeah, a lot. Well, Yeah, a lot less so. And I said, you know, basically, who are you making these loans to? He said, well, I don't know. I said, well, yeah. So I said, I'm not sure it's quite as good of a thing as you think it is, but it's very profitable right now. Problem is, it's not regulated in most countries. You know, a lot of these things are not regulated. So anyway, here's a question. How many of you are in the B, or how many of you own your own business first? A couple of people already that I've talked to own their own business. So it makes sense. I mean, if you don't own your own business, I would guess you're here because free food. Something, but maybe it's warmer here. I don't know. But if you own your own business, what markets are you mostly in? B2C or B2B? I mean, it's not totally exclusive, but what do you focus on? How many of you sell directly to consumers? You're a retail sort of situation. You are. What do you do?
And have self-catered accommodation.
Okay. So you're B2C. How many of you are in the B2B market? I guess you are. Yeah, because you sell research, right? I guess services. What else? Events management, yeah. I mean, any of these things are in the B2B market where you're basically selling to someone else prior to it getting to the end consumer. And, you know, here's the question. If you're in the B2C market, you're in the accommodation market, you compete on price or you try to be different? I would guess you probably don't compete on price in accommodation, do you?
Trying to be different.
You have to be, kind of, because if someone's only looking for cheap price, they're probably going to go to a larger chain, I would guess. Or they're like me and they'll actually go to a hostel or camp or something, So if you're really price conscious, you probably will have not be in that market. In fact, a lot of the boutique accommodation, they really try to be different in terms of quality or whatever. What about the B2B market? How are you selling? I mean, there's really only two things you can do. You can either be cheaper or different, right? That's all. And so what are you trying to do? Different? Okay. So in the B2B market, some people try to be different. It's kind of interesting though. In the B2B market are the purchasing entities, the actors, are the decision makers. How price conscious are they now?
Very.
Brutally, right.
Very.
I mean, to the point of just saying, yeah. So they're very, very price conscious.
There's no value lens often.
It's only price. It's only price often. So it's really changing rapidly. The joke is, I don't know if this is one you can appreciate, but at least I'm used to working for, go ahead, please, yeah. I used to work for the U.S. Corps of Engineers. They make big things like dams and locks and military bases and stuff like that. But there's one thing that's kind of interesting. Bridges and dams. But let's talk about a dam, because I'll talk about a dam in a minute, Katrina. But with a dam, do you want to use the cheapest contractor you can find? You want to take the guy who has the lowest bid, or gal, necessarily? Why? Yeah, people die. Yeah, people die with that. So sometimes a price focus is a little, maybe not really okay. All right.
But that's also intangibles. That's a tangible example.
It's very tangible. It's very tangible.
With
services,
tangible.
yeah, with what you're doing, it's more difficult. Absolutely. I mean, but yes, it's a good example though. How should I say this? Do you think medical care depends on how much you pay? Medical care. Maybe, I'm not sure in this country if it does. But a lawyer, I wouldn't want to go to the cheapest lawyer if I needed a lawyer, would you? Okay. So how do you use segmentation to try to gain competitive advantage? First, do you try to do it? Do you try to understand who your customers are and understand the market out there? And then if you segment your market, what does that mean? How do you do it? And, we're not going to cover everything. I think Errol's going to have a little different approach to all of this, but it's basically kind of give you exposure to what segmentation and marketing is. So let's talk about why you would segment. Basically, like I said, you can either be cheaper or different, and that's it. And you try to, of course, get profit, market share growth. That's what you want to do. Why? Why do businesses need all that, particularly profits? And startups often don't have those. But why do you need profits?
To stay in business.
Yeah, you just go away pretty quickly. I remember the first time I did some consulting, I was doing a consulting for a marketing cooperative. And it was an agricultural marketing cooperative, which you guys have as well. And they were actually self-liquidating. They were pricing so low that they weren't recovering all their costs and they weren't profitable. They just didn't understand it. They were being very price competitive. They were so price competitive that actually they went out of business. So what are your sources of advantage? Well, you can either have superior resources or superior skills. You know, you can have, for instance, you can have the resources needed to do something, or you can be better at it than anyone else. I mean, Errol's going to talk about Nike.
Yeah.
And Nike had a superior resource, and what was that? A brand that was just hard to beat, right? And they also had superior skills, and what was that? They're really good at marketing, they're pretty good at product design, pretty good at product development, and pretty good at channels, I think. So, anyway, why segment? Because you're trying to be profitable. Customers talk about value propositions in their mind, and I do some work with startups. They're always talking about the value proposition. What's the value proposition? Well, the value proposition, at least in marketing, is pretty simple. You have benefits to the customer. And Mark got upset with me because I kept my bag out here. But what I did right before this, I live in Bathurst, and they don't have, unfortunately, one of these. Discount chemists. And discount chemists are remarkably cheaper on almost everything. You know, not everything, but a lot of things. So I like discount chemists, but I wanted to use both that as a segmentation thing because what are they? Cheaper or different? They're only cheaper. I mean, in fact, largely, if you look at this, they're selling exactly the same products. The people, they're fine, you know. Service is fine. In fact, it's regulated. A lot of the stuff they're selling is regulated, so they can't do too much different. Image, who really cares where you buy vitamins, right? Who cares? Cost of the customer, what do they try to cut down on? Only one thing, money. So they try to minimize your costs, only monetary costs. They don't do anything else, really. And I think they do a pretty good job. But I also want to bring out one other thing that I think is kind of interesting. Inner Health to Go. What an innovation. It's a probiotic. You know, it's probably, everybody says it's good to take. These are good for you. And I think they are. But what was the problem with Inner Health Plus? Yeah, you always eat it in a refrigerator. And evidently the efficacy of it dropped pretty remarkably as you kept it out of the refrigerator. Like for one day it was okay, for 2 days they weren't as good. You still had a lot of live bacteria, but after a while they just wouldn't survive. So this Inner Health Plus to Go, what have they done? What's the main benefit to the customer that they've changed? Huh?
Convenience?
Yes, convenience. Well, two things. One, they did change the product. It's a different product attribute, but the product is not, evidently it's the same stuff in there. I don't know anything about what's in there, but it's the same bacteria. But what have they done? They've changed the packaging. And it's not the packaging of the bottle, it's the packaging of what? The capsules evidently have some sort of, there's like a dual capsule. I don't understand how it works, but there's a little kind of air pocket in there that evidently insulates the bacteria enough so it's fine. It stabilizes the temperature in some way, and I don't know how. And so the product's just a little different. Everything else is the same. They can charge more, they don't, which is interesting. But what else do? They make it much less effort. There's more convenience, much less effort, and of course, makes it easy to use. So anyway, what are some other costs to customers? You know, I talked about money costs that you can minimize. We just talked about time and effort. What are psychological costs? Maybe you have psychological costs about stuff.
Well, that's where the brand comes in,
Maybe, yeah, could be. Where you don't feel regret or worry. That is possible. But I'm thinking about, like, I'm sticking with the same product because it's easy. What's one of their other variations? And this variation has the same attribute. It's dairy-free, whatever that means. In other words, they don't put dairy in it. Now, for some people, they're worried about dairy. If you're vegetarian or vegan, particularly vegans, they don't want it, right? Although bacteria are kind of animals, but we won't worry about that. Anyway, so you kind of look at that and say, no. So, but you're trying to minimize psychological costs, really. That's all you're trying to do. That's all you're trying to do. And I think they've done a pretty good job. And the other psychological costs they're trying to minimize, because I had bought this stuff before it was in the to-go version. I would fly somewhere, and by the time I would get there, I was always wondering, is it okay to take it? I mean, I don't know. But anyway, don't worry about it. They have maximized, I think, the value proposition to the point where I'm not sure that other companies will do very well in this, because they have a pretty dominant market position. They've done well with it. Oops. Okay. I don't know if I don't want to talk about that. I thought I'd taken that out. I'm sorry. Here's the question. Is marketing still relevant in this fourth economic revolution that we're all in, and we don't all know we're in it yet? You know? I think it is. Yeah, I think it's very relevant. I mean, the first, we talk about steam, electricity, IT. Now it's the integration of technology, life science, genetic modification, the combination of genetics and digital. It's becoming kind of a real mix. And I think it is very relevant, but it's changing, and things like price are changing. For instance, Google's a real effective marketer, I believe. But what price do consumers usually pay to use Google services? And most of us use Google for maps and looking up stuff, and just about everything. Yeah, they don't charge you anything monetarily, but what do they charge?
Your internet provider charges you.
Yes, oh yes, but Google has to make money. Google, ads, but what else is Google doing? Oh gosh, yeah, they know more about you than you do, and in fact, they make money out of it, right? They monetize you. Essentially, we're kind of just commodities to Google, which is okay. I mean, when we use it, that's what we're saying we do. Yeah. Okay, so we use our email and God knows what else. My location, I always love that because, I just got a smartphone and I hate them because I don't really like to be tracked. I'm basically a pretty personal, I'm a private person. I don't like, and not that I'm doing anything, but, it's very frightening when you walk into a restaurant and they're saying, how did your experience go? I'm thinking, how do you know that? I know how they know it, but you're thinking, why does anyone care? Why does anyone care? Anyway, marketing and lean. I have to put this in. Errol, you're going to talk about lean marketing.
No.
Good, thank God. But anyway, some people will. I like it. But it's not much different than marketing. I mean, how many of you have done startups? Is anyone, you're doing a startup right now? And you probably talked about, did you go to Startup Weekend? The boot camp? No? Okay. But I mean, that was a lean, I would guess, lean processes. But the whole point is, it's not that different. Traditional marketing, we talk about understanding customers, basically explicit and latent needs, what are they? We talk about some sort of market research and segmentation. Once we understand the customers, we try to target and position them, come up with a marketing strategy that somehow is consistent. In other words, that you're pricing relative to your customers, that the distribution makes sense for your customers. Lean, they talk about the same stuff, but just with different names. I mean, in truth, they talk about customer discovery, customer evaluation, that sort of thing, creating customers. And it's not that different. But what's the main thing in both of these are that you actually have to try to understand your customers. What are their needs? Not just the ones I'll tell you, but what are the real needs? Because a lot of products are products that are sold for reasons that people don't often talk about, right? They don't talk about explicitly to strangers anyway. So it's important to understand that while there's a lot of people talking about lean marketing and that marketing is dead, it isn't. It's the same. It just, they changed the names. And this is just kind of a visual of it, but it's the same thing. You have segmentation, targeting, positioning, which is very traditional marketing. You have lean, which is customer discovery, validation, creation, and finally company building. Very similar. And if you have an interest, I'm not going to go into it any more than this. There's a couple of things that you could recommend. There's a guy named Steve Blank who he came up with part of this anyway. He's got a website, steveblank.com. Everything on it's free. Now, he will monetize it later, but you can get a lot of information and a lot of good stuff from him for free. The other ones that I would recommend, there's a Udacity course on how to start up a business. Totally free. He teaches it. I met him. He's a really nice man. The guy who came up with this whole idea of lean startups actually teaches a course for free on the internet. How does he monetize all this? I'll tell you. One, he's a venture capitalist, and two, he'll bring you into his ranch for a kind of a one-on-one business consulting thing. And I think it's about $10,000 a day. So he doesn't have to do it very often, and he's pretty rich anyway. So anyway, but I recommend those. The owner startup manual, he'll give you the book. If he literally, I've seen him with boxes of books handing them out to people. So he does believe in it, and you can get it on Amazon cheaply if you're interested. It's a very good book. Harvard Business Review: Why the Lean Startup Changes Everything. That's excellent. All right. But getting back to this, what are the needs and problems of your specific target market? Do you really know your target market? Do you know their problems and concerns and what they actually value? And why do they buy the product? And if they buy the product, why do they buy it from you? Why do they come here? Why do they come to your, why would they come to WRI consulting? There may be some reasons, but do you know the real ones? Some know. Yeah, Yeah. So what do you know about your customers really? All right. First, segmenting, and then again, asking these questions. Is it Ford versus Holden, dividing the pie? All that stuff, we've talked about that. Marketing is war. Marketing is cooperation and competition. Not a good way to go, but it's an interesting thought. There's this new thing that's coming out. It's a word called cooperation. Are you familiar with that? Where small businesses cooperate in some areas, like in clusters. Mark might be talking about clusters if you come to another one of these. We'll talk about clusters. So if you're in a cluster, you're in a similar industry. And if you're in a similar industry, there was this radical idea called a farmer's co-op. I don't know if you had that. I mean, you did. And at one time, farmers would get together and do what? They would create a mutual society so they could buy fertilizer and seed and fuel and stuff at a much lower price because they're buying bulk purchases. It was actually very smart. And so what you're seeing with a lot of small businesses, particularly in geographically concentrated clusters, if you will, are that they will cooperate through, for instance, mutual purchasing to get better deals. And sometimes shared office space, and sometimes other ways of cooperating in terms of R&D. And then they're cutthroat competitors selling to their clients. So it's kind of a weird sort of thing, and I don't know how this is going to work out, but it is a new way of doing business. At one time, if you cooperated with someone, you could cooperate at both sides, both buy and sell, but not so much anymore, so they can be exclusive. So it's kind of an interesting way of working. Making the new pie, making a new, very new pie. New market with new product, we talked about some of these things, but just, I think it's interesting. One is, of course, angel investment. How's that a new pie? Some of you are probably thinking about that, I guess. Yes. Do you know what it is? Business angel is? Someone who gives you money and they want a stake in your business. They want equity. It's not formal venture capital. It's usually not very well regulated. In some countries, it's more regulated than others. In Australia, it's not highly regulated. But angel investment is that you're taking on equity partners, if you will. But that's kind of a new market with a new product. And a lot of companies are going with equity. A lot of small startups are going with equity. And there's probably some issues down the road, but it is a new way. What about Rogaine? You know what Rogaine is? It was actually kind of like Viagra. I was going to talk about Viagra, but sometimes people don't like it. But it is a funny story. I mean, Rogaine basically does for your hair what Viagra does for other parts. And that it kind of gives you your youth back, so to speak. Rogaine, if you're going bald, male pattern, and for females too, it actually helps enhance the company. It's up John's company. It enhances your production of hair because they want more hair. Viagra was, of course, what? It was a cardio drug that failed. You know, everyone knows the story, right? And the guys in Scotland didn't want to give it back. And, you know, the people at Pfizer were going, why? Why don't you want to give us this drug back? Because it's not helping your heart. I said, it does. It kind of helps our heart a lot. Anyway, all right. Kickstarter talked about it. Champagne, you know what that was. That was a mistake. Champagne is just re-fermented wine, just re-fermented in a good way, right? Segue, new market, new product, and all sorts of funny things. There's a real advantage of this. What's the big advantage of creating, it's called market creation strategies. What's the big advantage for a company, whether it's big or small? Yeah, you have essentially a legal monopoly for some period of time until others can compete. And, you know, sometimes you can kind of extend the monopoly through effective marketing. Sometimes you extend the monopoly through effective regulation. You regulate them out of it. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. Okay. Or you can try to make a larger pie by meeting latent, unmet needs and creating additional primary demand. Good example is Ford's Model T. I mean, Ford did not create the car, did not develop the new car, you know, he was not the inventor of the car at all. But what did he do? What was the miracle?
Accessible.
It was accessible. It was the first car where people who built them could actually buy one. And so that was a much bigger pie. He said it's a much bigger pie. By the way, he wasn't an idiot. What else did he do? At the same time, he got the price down. He actually created this thing, he wasn't the initiator of it, but he developed and encouraged credit unions for his workers in his own factories. And of course, they would save a little, and what was he hoping they would buy? Well, Ford, of course, yeah, and you know, some of them did. You know, Australia, I think, is very lucky and fortunate in that there's a superannuation program or scheme or whatever you call it, where workers, most, not all probably, but most people can look forward to some retirement. That's not the case. Like in the U.S., the equivalent of your superannuation here, for someone who's my age, 60, is you'll have less than $100,000 will be your balance. You can't retire on $100,000. It'll be tough, you know, it'll be tough. I don't know what it is in Australia. It'd be much higher. It'd be, you know, anyone's worked 30 or 40 years or whatever, they would be much higher. Compact, interesting company, you know, Compact's kind of really, it's something that some of you may not even remember, but Compaq was a formidable computer competitor at one time. And you know, they basically created a whole new market. They didn't create the laptop, they created this thing that weighed, God knows how much, probably 10 or 15 kilos. However, the truth was, it was portable. They called it luggable, which was true. It wasn't really all that light. But if you needed to carry it, you could. I've carried those things around for when I was getting my master's. And then, of course, microfinance. What does microfinance do? What needs does it mean?
Payday loans.
No. That's a different one, but that's true. Payday loans and credit. That's actually looking at a segment that may not have access to normal banking. Microfinance would be made, I was thinking of it in a more benign way, you know, for small businesses. Often, it used to be, what scared me, and it scared me in the U.S., Ramin Bank, are you familiar with Ramin Bank, the guy who won the Nobel Prize, who came up with this idea of microfinance, zero interest-free loans to small businesses? Guess where the biggest growth is? U.S. So it's scary. I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking if you're an American to think that your home country is where a lot of microfinance is happening. But it is actually making a much larger pie because it was giving access to credit to people that had none. They really had none. And you're right, payday loans, it's the same thing. I mean, in Australia, what sort of rate can you charge on a payday loan? Yeah, I mean, and usually it's much higher. So usually you're talking about something close, at least where I was living for a long time, it would work out to be about 300% a year. So it's not bad. It's good. It's good rate of return. It's pretty brutal business stuff. Anyway, it's normally easier and more effective if you don't have to compete head on with others. So, you're in the accommodation business, you don't want to compete directly. You probably want to be better, different somehow. I mean, because you don't want to have to fight all the time. So segmentation, how do you segment? Well, there's a lot of ways of looking at it. But to understand it, you have to understand that you start clustering, grouping people with similar tastes and preferences, needs, wants, and then demands. In other words, what are their needs, and you know what needs are, I guess. Needs are, biological, psychological. These are what you really need just because you're a human. You want a brand, you want Coca-Cola, or you want, you want whatever beer you want, whatever brand. But demand is kind of a whole different thing because you want to look at people in similar, with similar, I guess you could say, demand functions if you were in a university classroom, but basically people that have similar resources to do what? Buy. Because in truth, if you have a segment and people have very divergent resources, and some can buy and some can't afford it, then it's more difficult to figure out pricing, place, product position, and all these things. So you want a fairly homogeneous group if you can do it. One thing I always tell a class, at least a university class, and it's very true. A good segment is homogeneous within. In other words, everyone largely wants the same thing, whatever it is. It's a meaningful thing. I mean, whatever it is they want is what they want, and it's a meaningful differential. It's meaningful and different. You can market it. There's differences between segments, and here's one that's important that people often forget. You can often come up with great segmentation strategy, but a segmentation strategy that you don't make money on is not a good one, is it? I mean, who doesn't want a Mercedes S-Class, right? I mean, well, I know, yeah, maybe you don't, but I think they're great cars. I mean, there's a good car. Come on, I mean, there's a good car, Lexus. I mean, they're great. They're wonderful cars. Who doesn't want it? How, because what do they tick these boxes? Safety, yes. Comfortable, yes. Really comfortable, yes. So they have the things that I like. I mean, the rest of it I could care less. I don't care about the image, but I do like the idea that they're really good cars. They're really good cars. Problem is, though, Mercedes would go broke selling me one. Why? Because I don't want to pay for a Mercedes. I want to pay for like a Corolla or something like that, or a Subaru, a cheap Subaru. I can't afford it. All right, segmentation variables. How do you talk about segmenting? So how do you look at breaking out this stuff? Well, you talk about geographic, and there's different ways of doing that. Segmentation, in truth, automobiles are segmented attribute-wise by nation. What causes that? Not just where the steering wheel is, but what?
Right.
Yeah, and environmental standards and safety standards, which are almost always just a little different. They're not always different, but they're all often a little different. When I first immigrated to Australia, there was this plug. I lived in the UK, but I wasn't living there permanently, so I didn't understand the electrical plug. But you would have a very similar appliance with a very different looking plug. And why did those countries do that? Yeah, it was protecting. It was basically just protecting their market. It was a way of essentially excluding other firms from entering. So there is national segmentation. Urban versus rural is really big, or urban versus regional. What do you think? If you're in Orange or Bathurst or this area, and you're going to buy a house, housing, and you have a family, is it going to be multifamily dwelling, or would it probably be many times, not always, but often single family? Yeah, I mean, like that, you might, have some space or whatever, and that you would find part of the attraction, right? If you were in Melbourne or Sydney or New York or London, what would you probably have? Yeah, it's in multifamily, it'd be dense, it'd be very dense. Very different. And so I mean, there's many things that are different here. Many things. Weather, you know that. Demographics, age, obviously, needs, resources, and tastes change all the time. And, I turned 60 last year, and, you know, I know things are different. I really do. You know, I think differently. I became a pensioner. It was great. I like getting a check for not working. So anyway, those are good things. But there's some bad things too. And you do have different needs. You start thinking about things a little differently. You really do. Generations. Are generations a reasonable way of segmenting? I think so. For instance, who uses Facebook now? My mom. No, not my mom. But, you know, my mom's dead. But, you know, yeah, grandparents, people, you know, but kids aren't using that so much. They're using other things. They've gone to other platforms. And so, you know, generations, how we use smartphones, platforms we use, all that. Cohorts, I think, are more important than you think. In the U.S., I mean, in my age, everybody that I know that's that's roughly my age can tell you where they were on 2 occasions. One, when Kennedy was assassinated, and 2, when the U.S. landed a man on the moon. You know that. You know where you were. Those are vivid memories for most people. There's some other ones that have come up. 9/11, you know, watching it unfold. It was pretty frightening for almost everyone. Katrina, because that's where I'm from. Here, I guess bushfires mark time. Maybe other things mark time to some extent. The reason why I'm saying bushfires, though, because like in Victoria, they talk about Black Friday, and I think they're usually catastrophic events. In New Zealand, the way they were marking time is by things like big quakes, you know, and so it's often that sort of catastrophe, if you will. But why are cohorts? Why do they matter? I'll give you an example. My parents grew up during the Depression, and that cohort group. How do you think their values were? See, probably none of you were that old. They were very different. Yeah, they were frugal, even with money. They were frugal. They thought through things a lot differently than people say today. So cohorts matter in terms of how you consume, what you want to buy, that sort of thing. And then, of course, gender. I mean, when I say gender, I mean gender affiliation. You know, what are you? What do you consider yourself? All these things, all, of course, can be used as segmentation variables. Other variables, you know, we talked about location, ethnic affiliation, not what you are, again, like gender, but what you think you are. Not what you are, but what you think you are. Why am I saying that? It may not be apparent as much here, but the first person I ever worked for in a university was 100% Spanish. 100%. He was Spanish. His name was Gonzalez, 100% Spanish. He did not think of himself as a Spaniard. He thought of himself as an American. He did not speak Spanish and would not speak Spanish. So any appeal that looked at his demographics, they say, well, Gonzalez, you know, he's Spanish, and he's going to want to eat like whatever it is, and he's going to want to live in a certain way. He had none of the, I mean, he intentionally would not affiliate with the Spanish culture. Intentionally. And so just because you are something doesn't mean that's how you consume, is it? Because some people just intentionally decide they want to be part of whatever other culture or subculture. So think of that. Social class. Is social class a good way to segment? Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful way to segment. We'll get to it in a minute, but like with coffee. I mean, at home, at home in the States, I drink drip coffee, but that would be considered sinful in many parts of the world. But what do I drink here? Of course, instant. Yeah, of course, instant. I mean, there's no way that I would have an espresso machine here. It's just too expensive. It's just too expensive. However, at the right social class, not just income, but, you know, at the right social class, you wouldn't be caught dead without a coffee machine, would you? Yeah, I mean, you'd actually have to be, like, you'd be disenfranchised from your peers. So, you know, I guess social class does, in fact, matter. And in fact, it matters a lot because, you know, I mean, one of my favorite shows is Upper Middle Bogan. I think it's hilarious, but I think it's hilarious because why? It's true. I mean, it's absolutely true. And of course you have, I have friends that own a Lexus SUV that looks identical to this thing called a Toyota, but with one difference. And what is it? Yeah, it's got a different badge, it's got more image. And of course, my buddy, she thinks, and her husband both think it's a much better machine than the Toyota. You're thinking, it's actually like 95% the same, except that it costs a lot more. It costs a lot more. But, hold on.
Oops. That's the family.
No.
And the dogs.
Yeah, hold on. It's something bad. Hold on. Cubbies. Cubbies. When I first immigrated to Australia, I read in the Wall Street Journal, a friend of mine sent this to me about cubbies, cashed up bogans, right? And of course, a cubby is someone, the lady who was my secretary in Tasmania, her partner was a cashed up bogan. He was like some sort of driller. He was a fly-in, fly-out guy. And he had a pickup truck. I don't know if it was this one, but it was like the highest horsepower ute that's ever been made. I mean, it had, I don't know how much power it had. I don't even know why he had it, because he didn't drive, but he spent $70,000, $80,000 on this incredible machine that essentially to me was kind of silly, but he liked it, and it meant something to him. And it probably meant a lot to him because he was able to afford it. So, I mean, that's part of the whole thing. So social class does matter, but social class, particularly when you combine income and income differentials, because like, for instance, in Australia, people in working class have tended to do pretty well, but some people in the working class have probably done better. For instance, plumbers, I guess. If at least it's like most places in the world, plumbers tend to command a real premium, for good reason. For good reason. If your plumbing's not working, you can't stay in the house very long. So anyway, values. That's another way of segmenting. This isn't from the U.S., but I'll get to an Australian version. This is very traditional values, activities, lifestyles, really trying to understand the market based on what do people believe, what do they want, how oriented are they towards achievement, how creative are they. And, you have people that are struggling to survive, people that are homeless, that have no resources, and they're simply trying to survive, so they're not really included in this. But once you get past that, and by the way, homeless people do have consumption preferences, and people are segmenting to homeless people. You know that, right? I mean, they're in different ways. So it's not totally that they're not in the markets. But you have, I'm not going to go through these, but I'm just saying that if you look at this, it makes sense. If you look at people based on what they value achievement is to them, how important achievement is to them, and then status, how self-expressive they are, how self-expressive they are. I mean, good example, real good example. I think it's a real good example. Like my wife loves would be people like my wife loves absolutely loves crafts. It's just absolutely loves crafts. It's just good. She's very high over here. She's very high over here. You do this. You could kind of, and then you could kind of look through this. I don't want to take that time. I want to go to something that might be a little bit relevant. Warren Morgan has 10 segments in Australia. And you actually can access this for free. For free. You just can't get that. And there's 10. You can look at it, and there's 10 different lifestyles. Look at me. So one of them is, we've all seen her, right? And I mean, we've all seen her. A young person. I mean, a young person. What is his biggest interest in the world? What is themselves? Yeah. I mean, they have only one self. Yeah. Yes. I mean, they have only one interest. Yeah. It's all about me. I mean, and we all know it. And so, nothing wrong with it anyway. And so, nothing wrong with it. Look through this. And so, you can kind of look through this, and there are. Is it perfect? In fact, is it perfect as a small business person? But even as a small business person, because it does give you an idea who's out. Because it does give you an idea who's out there. And as Roy Morgan's And you can just, you can look at these different categorizations based on what people value, how important status is, and really kind of the resources. Other segmentations, behavioral, heavy users, avid versus light users. The old idea that often 80% is bought by, 80% of a product is often bought by a small percentage of people, right? Often a high amount of consumption occurs in a very tiny group of people. You can also look at role in the family buying center. Who picks the child's snacks? Does the user, think everyone's dealt with this at some point in their life, I guess. Who picks your child's snack food? Well, it just depends, doesn't it? It really, and some of it's age dependent and all that. I know that. But, segmentation, different families have different ways of doing this, and it's a different decision model. And you can basically kind of follow this through. Is it junior? Is it the influencer? Maybe your GP said, junior's weighing about 140 kilos, and it's a little too much. Maybe it's time to get off the sugar just a little bit. Is it your purchasing agent? That would be mom or dad, supermarket, Lily's, or Kohl's. Or is it the side of granddad sent some money for junior's school snacks? Snakes? Maybe snakes, but snacks is what I meant. Snacks. And, basically that's, does junior get what granddad wanted them to get? Behavioral segmentation. You can segment by behavior. I've done some of this in green consumption. I have an interest in that, which is, I guess, kind of interesting. But basically, how green are people? Even if someone's a ardent pro-environmentalist, will they always buy based on that? Heck no. Why? Well, for instance, time. If they don't have time, they just can't. I gave the example when I was working on that particular project with somebody. I said, I would love to be able to go to like a health food store to buy stuff, but the problem is it's not convenient. So I just go to Woolworths on the way back from work. That's it. It takes me 20 minutes to shop instead of like an hour and a half. So, time's valuable. Task. Again, basically, why are you doing it? The one that's kind of interesting, who are you shopping with? 10 minutes? Oh, okay, 5 minutes usually. Okay, 10 minutes. Who are you shopping with? If you're shopping, a good example, if you're going to a movie and we'll stick with pro-environmental. If you're shopping with someone who's a member of, what is it? Do you know what Sea Shepherd is? It was real popular in Tasmania and Victoria. Okay, so if you're shopping with a person who's a member of, maybe they go out on a boat and get, hosed down by the Japanese or something with water, I don't know. But and they're wearing a Sea Shepherd shirt. How environmentally oriented are you? You're feeling pressured not to buy like tuna or so. I'm not being silly in a way. I'm actually being honest. You're going to a movie with your 5-year-old granddaughter. In truth, is it going to be the same movie that you're going to go to with your spouse? Probably not. Unless they go with you. But it's very different. So that sort of thing. Time, temporal. So social, task, temporal or temporal. Time of day, season of week. You eat different things at different times of the day. At different times of the year, you eat different things. And you dress differently and you consume differently. And antecedent. You're going to a bar to get a beer. And here are the things that have happened. One, you just got fired. It's going to be a different experience than if you just got promoted, which will be a different experience that you just found out you have a terminal illness and you only have 1 year to live. That's kind of sad. But what I'm saying is, do antecedent conditions, your mood and that sort of thing affect how you shop? Sure, there's been a lot of studies that say some people shop for pleasure, they shop for stress reduction, they do all sorts of things. And it's obvious to see that those would be at least 2 or 3 different situations. How have you segmented your business, or have you? Who has? How many of you have segmented your business? 1, 2, couple. Have you thought about it? You really think about different market segments and coming up with different ways of trying to reach them, communicate to them, price, come up with a product mix that might work for that segment. And how can you reach those customers? I mean, it's an important thing, and we have probably enough time to do this. Segmenting the 100-person white wine market. Thought I'd just do something because I understand this is a big wine area. Is white or red or both? Both, good, so I'm fine. Okay, so, all right, you can look at, I'm going to do something bad. Nope, it was lost. Okay. This should be, pretend this is price and this is sweet. Yes. Okay. Let's use two variables. You only use two variables in an example like this. Could we ask, everyone here, do you like really, really sweet or really, really not sweet wines? Everyone could come up with. I mean, some people love, what is it, a Moscato? Real sweet. An ice wine, real sweet. It's like a dessert wine. It's fine, Some people like a not sweet, very less sweet. Dry is a better way to say it. I was going to say something else, but anyway, dry. Some people, and price is probably not the best one, but since my labels have fallen apart here, we'll use price. Price, some people are real sensitive with price. I am. So, a little bit you know about me. What type of wine do I buy? What brand? Not the cheapest, no. Huh? No. Well, maybe. No. I've worked in a winery. That's the one thing, the one skill I have is I have worked in a winery, actually. And I made one, actually. So I know how to do this a little bit.
Take a second chance.
No, I just buy these clean skins. Why? Because I know the marketers, what is a clean skin? It's only wine that would normally be priced at a higher price than the $5 I'm buying it. And of course, I always buy from, BWS, when they're having their 25% sales. And you get, I think a bottle of wine cost me about $3.25, which is the one I brought over to your house. And but they're not bad. They're not bad. And there is some variance. They're not perfectly consistent either, because if you get one, I think I get the Shiraz. Let's just say Shiraz. If you get 2 bottles of Shiraz from Woolworths, called clean skins, at different times, they may be from different vineyards, which is fine. So they may be a little different, but in general, these are not cheap bottles of wine, and they're pretty good bottles. They're generally good bottles of wine. That what are they doing? They're trying to maintain their market position by what? Not flooding the market. Yeah. And so the way they do it, I mean, they're making money out of this, but they're just not making the $20 or $25 or whatever. So you can segment. And of course, what you look at is, here you have 5 customers out of 100 and no strong competitors. Small market, but no competition. Here you have a lot of customers, but what? Really strong competition. So what makes sense to you? I mean, it depends. No, but it depends. Not everyone's going to have a different, but where are you going to go?
Like you said, point of difference.
Yeah. So, if you can be, but in truth, like for someone like me, I mean, I actually know something about wine, and I don't care that much difference. I mean, I'm not going to spend more than $3. Anyway, all right. Targeting strategy. Mass market. Let's just, and I'll run through this. I have, 2 minutes? 3.
You can probably take that for another 6 or 7 minutes.
A couple of minutes, okay.
5 minutes.
I'll be done in a minute. All right, so you have this thing called a mass market, full market coverage. Woolworths is a good example. Price, relatively low cost, versus Nespresso. I did the calculations just kind of roughly. All right, Nespresso, basically, a $400, a $14, you can, for $14, I could get this Moccona at Woolworths. I got 400 grams for $14 yesterday, which is a lot of instant coffee for $14. I think it's going to cost, I think I'll probably get 140 cups, so what is that? How much? It's like 10 cents a cup, roughly, give or take. That's not too bad, I can afford it. Nespresso, what is it almost always? They've worked it out almost always, so it's what? About $1 a cup. It's almost always $1 a cup. Doesn't matter. And so, price, relatively low. Place, Woolworths. people go in Woolworths. It's not a specialty food company. This is a better tasting instant coffee, but it's not great. It's just doesn't taste awful, right? Okay. Anyway, but it's fine. It's fine. However, think about this. If you're making $500,000 a year, you're shopping at Woolworths a lot. Not so much. Are you drinking a lot of instant coffee? Not so much. It's a little different. You're a different market. Multiple markets. Acai buying Mountain Goat beer. It's happening all the time. I love craft beer. What's the problem? Are craft beers anymore? No. Most of them are owned by who? Somebody else. Squire's is owned, they're all being bought up. My favorite beer in Australia is, what is it? It's from Fremantle. Little Creatures. I love Little Creatures beer, but you might as well just get, I think it's, who owns it now? It's in a conglomerate. So, there's nothing, it's just what's happening. It is what's happening. But that's multiple markets. So you're acai, and you have acai beer, you've got Mountain Goat beer, you've got all sorts of price points. Diageo's got beers all over the map. And basically they understand that. One market, a niche market, a craft beer brewery, where you have real craft beer, it's your brewery, and you're making really good beer. That's a niche market. What's good about a niche market? And often small businesses get in niche markets for a lot of reasons, because you can be different and you can, in fact, sometimes protect it. But what's good about a niche market? Yeah, and you can charge higher prices, and people often are not unhappy to pay as long as there's good quality, and they're treated well. The last, and I was trying to use, this is an Australian example, but you can go all the way down to a market of one person. Total customization. And this is a company called gasoline.com. They'll custom build a chopper for you. I'm sure it's closer to 100,000 than it is to 50,000. But if you want it, they'll do it. And for a lot of people, it's worth it, or for some people, it's not for me, but for a lot of people it is. Positioning and your value proposition. And I'll kind of wind down here.
You got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Position. Your firm's image in the mind of your customer may or may not be real. That's what you have to understand. Positioning doesn't have to be real. You probably will say that too, won't you? It doesn't, it's in fact, marketing, the good thing about marketing is there's nothing real about it, right? It's just whatever people think. You can either be largely cheaper or you can be somewhat different. That's it. How does Subaru position? 4-wheel drive and safety. That's what they say they do. And I think it's probably true to some extent. If you look at other car companies, they all have a different positioning strategy. How did Kia and Hyundai position for a long time? Maybe not in Australia, but in the U.S.
Cheap.
Really cheap. They were so cheap that you actually also didn't have to have a gym membership. Why? They spent a lot of time. Now they're fine cars. But what I remember is if you owned a Hyundai, you spent some time pushing it, which is fine. All right. How does your firm position? Because remember, you can only be one of two. And you might want to think about that a little bit. Are you Domino's or are you a more costly wood-fired pizza? And here's the problem: if you go cheap in a lot of markets, who are you fighting? Really big companies that are going to kill you. Can you really compete against Domino's? Not really. I tried to order a pizza last night from a place that has wood-fired pizzas in Bathurst, and they're pretty good. And the guy said, I'm sorry, we can't take a telephone order. You can come and sit and pick it up if you want to, but we won't do that. And I thought about it. First, I kind of got, because my wife wasn't feeling well, and I thought I'd just go do that. And I realized, actually, they're smart. Why? Because they don't want to in any way get into trying to compete against Domino's, because Domino's will deliver it for $5 or $6 or $7 or something. By the time it's over, these guys are going to be dead if they try to compete like that. B2B segmentation. Okay, if you're in the B2B market, a couple of you are in. Plane is a plane. Not really. That's an F-22, which Australia has bought some, thank God. And that's not. But they have very different. Now, I actually, one of my family members works on those, so they're interesting planes. Anyway, very different. So segmentation, sector and purpose, by classification of goods, a capital good that makes other goods to material goods. I think that the person who got to my slide deck got real confused. She changed a few slides, and she was thinking about material goods, and she wanted to put Madonna in there, but I had plastic stuff. I originally had a 3D printer, and then the plastic ingredient, because of course those are different. And services, which is what you want. And you can do that. All right, last thing. What makes a market attractive? Size. Competition or lack of it. Some companies like competition, some do not. Do you have market access? Can you actually reach it? Do you have networks to reach it? Is it profitable potentially, or is it profitable now? If it's really, really, really profitable and there's no barriers to entry, should you stay in that market? Should you enter the market as no? Because you'd be killed. Compatibility, low levels of buyer power. In other words, who has the power? Do I have the power, or do you as a customer? And being a legal monopoly. Apple, for some companies, for some customers, excuse me, is an absolute legal monopoly. Why? How many of you are Apple users? Do you tend to switch? You know, if you like Apple, even if I can give you the way I buy cell phones is $49 or less. Nothing more than $49. And, because it does most of it, kind of, right? But what I'm saying is, for someone who's an iPhone user who wants an iPhone 15 or whatever the newest one is, that's, they're willing to pay whatever it costs, right? It's a monopoly. I think that that's kind of where I need to stop, because any more than that will get confusing. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts about how you can become rich and famous. Is segmentation easy to do? No. Is it quantitative? It can be. What does it require? Not necessarily. See, it just requires understanding your customers first, doesn't it? It doesn't really require, you don't have to spend a lot of money to do a good job of segmenting. I mean, some people, some small business people actually know their business and they know their customers so well, they actually segment whether they know it or not. They understand how much they can charge. They understand the attributes that these customers want. And so they're doing it. Some of you probably are already doing it in a way, you just may not know you can. But no, it doesn't necessarily require a lot of money, but it does require trying to figure out what needs you solve, what are your customers' problems that you solve, that sort of thing. How can you create more value for your customers? And so I'll kind of, I think that that's important to understand. Those of you who do segment, a couple of people raise their hands. Do you do it using quantitative information, or is it just market knowledge, knowing your customers? Mostly that, and that's what I think. I mean, that's, even though, in truth, that's how I would do it in most businesses. I wouldn't really try to do it quantitatively. I think that would be pretty tough in most cases, and it would be pretty expensive to do that.